There was once in Bura land a beautiful girl called Kwatam. Kwatam was at the age that she could get married, but she has decided to not marry anyone except if the person is very, very handsome and very, very rich. Kwatam and her friends will go to the village market to shop and to socialize, and young men will come to them to ask them to be their girlfriends. But Kwatam will refuse any man because the person is not rich, it's not very, very handsome and very, very rich. They will go to the village traditional dance or traditional festivals with her friends, and young men will also come to them to ask them to be their girlfriends, but Kwatam will refuse. And she will always say, "You are not my type. I will only marry a man who is very, very handsome and very, very rich." It got to a point where people in the village got to know her as the beautiful girl who will only marry a young man who is very, very handsome and very, very rich. All her friends got married to young men in their village and surrounding villages. Their husbands were not rich, very, very handsome, but loved them. Kwatam's parents were very worried that all her age mates and her friends are already married, but she was still single. So the word got out everywhere about Kwatam. So one day, a monster decided to transform itself into a very, very handsome and a very, very rich prince, heir apparent to have his father's throne. And he dressed in a royal costume, rode on a royal horse, and he was accompanied by 2 royal bodyguards, also on royal horses. He wanted to go and meet Kwatam and teach her a lesson. And with them, they carried a lot of money, a lot of gold, and a lot of silver. And they came to Kwatam's village. When they got there, the first person they met was an old man. And the prince told the old man that he had come to see Kwatam. So the old man took the prince to Kwatam's house. As soon as Kwatam saw him, she was very, very happy and elated. And she said to herself, "This is the man I will marry. This is my ideal husband." So even before the prince had declared his love for her or asked her to marry him, she ran to her parents and told them that she has found the man she would like to marry, a very, very handsome and a very, very rich prince. So her parents were happy that she has finally found somebody, but they were worried that this might not be the ideal man that she should marry. Her mother in particular was concerned about her safety and her well-being. But Kwatam refused. She said she will marry this prince whether her parents like it or not. So when they were arguing, the prince overheard Kwatam arguing with her parents. So he came over and told Kwatam's parents that he was there to marry Kwatam. So he ordered the bodyguards to offload the money, the gold, and the silver they brought. So he gave the items to Kwatam's parents and said, "This money, the gold, and the silver, I brought it because I want to marry Kwatam, and this will be her bride price and her dowry." And Kwatam's parents, they politely refused, meaning that they didn't want him to marry Kwatam. So the prince pretended to be disappointed or upset. So he told Kwatam that he was going back home to his father's kingdom. And Kwatam said, "I'm going to go with you. I'm going to marry you, whether my parents like it or not." So Kwatam followed the prince, disobeying or disregarding her parents' wishes. As soon as they got to the outskirts of Kwatam's village, the prince ordered the two bodyguards to stop following him and Kwatam. So Kwatam was surprised that the prince would ask the bodyguards to stop following them. But the prince explained to her by saying that he wanted them to have some privacy, to have quality time to get to know each other better. So Kwatam said, okay. So they walked a little bit, and then the prince asked her to climb on his horse behind him. So Kwatam did. So as they were riding, they rode for about 3 miles, and the prince he stopped and said that they should get down the horse. So Kwatam was wondering why. So the prince told her that they are going to walk. Instead of riding on the horse, they will walk. So she was not happy but didn't want to argue. So as they were walking, they walked for about 4 miles in the bush. So the prince stopped and said, okay, wait for me here. I want to go inside the bush and ease myself. So Kwatam waited for the prince by the roadside. 10 minutes later, he came out, but only with one eye. So she was surprised, but didn't say much. So they continued to walk. They walked for another 3 miles in the bush, and the prince said they should stop, that he wanted to go back in the bush to ease himself again for the second time. And Kwatam waited for him by the roadside. 10 minutes after, he came out, but with only one leg. And he was not limping. He was just walking like someone with 2 feet. This time, Kwatam was scared, because in addition to walking with only 1 foot or on 1 foot, he had removed his royal robe. So he was wearing a simple shirt and exposing his hairy chest, hairy neck, and hairy arms. So Kwatam was scared. She was becoming afraid. So he said they should continue walking. So she couldn't go back, so they continued to walk. And then later, after walking for about 4 miles, Kwatam told the prince that she was tired, hungry, and thirsty. So the prince said, don't worry, we will soon reach our destination. So after walking for another 4 miles, they got to, in the bush, they got to a place, and the prince stopped. He said, we've reached our destination. And next to them was a baobab tree with a house on it. So it was a baobab tree house. So he pointed at it and said, okay, we've reached our destination. This is where I live. And Kwatam was very disappointed, because she was expecting to be taken to a big city and be taken to a palace where she will live as a princess. So she was scared, and the monster or the prince revealed his true identity. He said, look, I'm not a prince, I'm a monster, but I heard about your vanity. You said you will only marry a man who is very, very handsome and very, very rich. That's why I transformed myself into a very, very handsome and very, very rich prince in order to teach you a lesson. So first, because I'm a monster, we are not going to consummate the marriage. Second, I'm not going to kill you, but you will live in my tree house for as long as I want, just to teach you a lesson. How she was panicking. So he ordered her to climb the baobab tree and enter the tree house. At that time, she was so weak, so tired that she didn't have much strength. But she couldn't argue or couldn't resist. So she managed to climb the baobab tree, and she entered the tree house. And the monster said, okay, I'm going to leave you. I will not be staying with you, but I'm going to get you something to eat. So he left her. So after a while, he came back, but he brought to her a roasted frog and dirty water. And in her country or village, they don't eat frog. So she couldn't eat the roasted frog, and the water was too dirty. She couldn't drink the dirty water. The next day, the monster again brought her food, but it was food that she could not eat, and something that she could not drink. And that continued for a lot of times, and then she became really, really hungry, very, very tired, thirsty, and scared. Because inside the tree house, the walls were lined with human skulls and human skeletons. So she was always afraid. And each night, because she was alone, she would start to sing a lament, that is, song of sorrow. And the song goes like this. Ita bara mayana, mayana deliwa aya mamana. Ita bara babana, babana deliwa aya babana. Gipali dia prede kesal nakagna kan dakwa. Amay dingar girwa kamya izwali. Ita bara babana, babana deliwa aya babana. Ita bara mamana, mamana deliwa aya mamana. So in the song, she's saying that she wants her mom, but her mom is not there for her. She wants her dad, but her dad is not there for her. They've advised her not to marry a man who is very, very handsome and very, very rich, but she didn't listen to them. She is a foolish girl, just telling herself that she's very foolish. So she will sing that song every night. And then one day, the monster brought her food. This time it was a small roasted beef, roasted corn, and a small bowl of chicken soup. And she was very happy that finally she will be able to eat food, because all these days she had been drinking rainwater. When the rain was falling, she will use her hand to trap water to drink. So now she has something to eat. So when the monster left, as usual, she got ready to eat the food that the monster brought to her and to drink the soup. But then she spotted an old woman coming towards the tree house. So the old woman looked very weak, but she was still walking, and she finally got to the baobab tree and stopped there. And then Kotam looked through the window, and the old woman saw her. So the old woman looked up and said, "What are you doing in this tree house?" And she said, she told the old woman her story or her plight. She said, all along, my dream has been to marry a very, very handsome and very, very rich man. And a monster transformed itself into a very, very handsome and a very, very rich prince to marry me or to teach me a lesson. So he brought me here and kept me as a hostage, kept me hostage in this tree house to teach me a lesson. So the old woman said, "I am hungry. Can you give me food to eat?" And she has food, but it's not enough for the two of them to share. So she at first was not going to say yes, but she changed her mind and said, "Okay, I'm going to give you some food." So the old woman said, "Okay, you come down with the food and give it to me." She was so weak and scared too that the monster might see her coming out of the tree house. But the old woman told her, "Don't be afraid. The monster will not come anytime soon. So try and come down." So she came down with some of the food for the old woman. And the old woman ate the meat, the beef, the roasted beef, and the corn and the chicken soup that Kwatam brought down for her. And they started chatting. And Kwatam told her more, showing regrets for what she has done. And then the old woman said, "Okay, I'm going to save you. I will help you to get back home safely." So Kwatam was very happy and relieved that she will now be able to go back home to her village. So the old woman gave her a magic bracelet and said, "I will take you to a small path over there and lead you, or just direct you to where you can go, and then go home safely. So the old woman showed her the road or the path, and Kwatam followed that path. And in no time, she was at home, safe. But she had lost so much weight. She looked very dirty. Her hair was disheveled that her parents could not immediately recognize her. So when they recognized that she was the one, the parents were very happy. They were crying tears of joy. They did not judge her. The mother, she went and have her bath, and her mother and her father made sure that they fed her very well. So within few weeks, she regained her strength and started to put on weight again. And one of the young men who had earlier asked her to marry him heard that Kwatam was back in the village. So he came to see her. So Kwatam was very welcoming, very nice to him. So they started to see each other. They became friends. And then the man, he was not rich, but he was a good farmer. So he told her that he loved her and would like to marry her. And Kwatam agreed. And they got married. And they were blessed with 2 children, a girl and a boy. And they lived happily ever after. My friends, the lesson here is that you should marry someone who truly loves you and can take care of you, also be nice to you, and not someone who is very, very handsome and very, very rich, because outward appearance and wealth is not the same with true love and kindness. The end.